All right, now it's time for us to get into the news review segment. And let's see what we actually have on the papers as headlines, and then we'll get through it. And joining me in the studio is no other person than Apioka, who is the head of programs production right here at ChannelOne TV and City FM. Hello, Apioka.
Hello, Chris.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you? Good
fine,
morning.
thank you. Good morning. All right, so the papers are here.
Yes, they are. In all of their glory.
Yes.
In all of their glory. And you want to start? I should start.
All right. I have the daily graphics. I'm just going to start. So the daily graphic, on the front page of the daily graphic, we have boosting regional security. We must unite to fight terrorism. And President Akufo-Addo to African nations. Minister hails graphic and Zoom Lion cleanest region ranking initiative. Iyoko wins 4 audit agencies excellence award. Yeah.
All righty. And we have here the Ghanaian Times, same story. Let's deal with security threats together. President appeals to African nations. And there's a picture, of course, of the president there on the front page. And you can read more about it on page 12. We also have here, government saves 345 million Ghana cedis through nationwide payroll monitoring, says the employment minister. Now, if that's true, then I think that's a step in the right direction, because year after year, decade after decade, we've been dealing with a lot of ghost names on our national payroll.
And that has been one of the biggest problems.
Absolutely. And don't forget, the state is the biggest employer. State is the biggest employer. So if we have so many leakages, it will only go back to affect us, you know, on the economic front. Then we have here as well, stay and account for your stewardship. Mahama to presidents and government officials. It's political season, so there's a lot of that in the papers.
Right, so on the front page of the Business Analyst, we have Finance Minister requests 500 million Ghana cedis to address drought crisis. GJA and U.S. Embassy train journalists, and that's ahead of the December 7th election. Next of kin must do more to inherit bank accounts. BOG clarifies. NPP engaged in wasteful spending, and that's by Sami Jimfi. Maglan's microcredit grabs best startup support.
Now, I mean, just to stay with the drought issue for a while, of course, we know that in some parts of the country recently, we've had excessive flooding, and then in many parts, we've had the drought. Yesterday, Legacy Crop, who is actually going to be exhibiting at the This is Ghana Fair and exhibition, was talking about how their business and many other Ghanaian agricultural players have actually developed drought-resistant seeds. And so I hope that whatever we're doing to curb this drought situation, we're also looking at that going forward, looking at, you know, drought-resistant varieties of our maize, all the different staples, so that, you know.
I don't think they have ever thought of that, especially the farmers, because when Nanatufo and I spoke about this last week, it was the same thing. Maybe it's time to focus on drought-resistant seeds, just maybe. And my biggest problem is this is not the first time that we are hearing of droughts.
Exactly.
So what is happening? Why can't we be proactive? Why do we think, okay, the next time? You understand? And next time when it comes, we all start crying.
So you see, the thing is that as for our farmers, you know, a lot of our farming practices are still very agrarian. There are things that have, you know, practices that have been handed down from generation to generation. But the world is changing, and more, we've moved away from subsistence farming where, you know, I farm in my backyard, or, you know, we have a family farm and then we are okay. Now, the whole country, the whole nation relies on food baskets, pockets of different places, farmlands and whatnot, that the whole country needs to receive food from. And so, I mean, the farmers are doing what they'll do, but like you said, nationally, you know, the correct authorities, the right ministry, stepping in, working with our researchers, our scientists, our innovators in our agric to make sure that we don't have some of these issues.
And also, one headline I find interesting here, the GJA and U.S. Embassy training journalists. I think it's actually very important. And if we can remember, right here on Breakfast Daily, I think that was the beginning of the year, somewhere the beginning of the year, the U.S. Embassy's rep came here to talk about this. And I think with the issue of false news, this is really important because false news can actually cause tension in the country during that time because everybody is on their toes.
It is.
Everybody wants their candidates to win. So if there's issue of false news, I mean, we the media are supposed to do better. And many a times we have seen that some media homes have actually fallen short of not doing better, of being the ones peddling things that they're unsure of. So I think this is a very good initiative for, from GJA and the U.S. Embassy.
No, I think it's brilliant. And, you know, let's accept that our democracy as Ghanaians is still fairly young as compared to many others in the world, the U.S. democracy as an example. And it doesn't mean that, you know, the U.S. has a perfect case study for it, or any other country for that matter. But we can learn from each other, and we should. Now, it's a global village. And, you know, again, whatever happens in other parts of the world now, including in Ghana, affects other people.
Everyone.
We need to realize that we are no longer disconnected from the global grid. Whatever happens here in one way or another, we'll be surprised, affects people. Let's even just use cocoa as an example. Assuming things, touch wood, don't go well, we begin to affect the cocoa market. That's a global market that's going to be affected as well. So I think it's a great thing. And I believe that our journalists are up to the task. Our media is up to the task. We've seen so many elections by now in the Fourth Republic. And I think that, you know, it only helps to, you don't have monopoly over knowledge, right? So I hope that we've learned something new that we can apply. So we can also play our role and ensure that peace prevails during the election.
Right, and another one here, the next of kin must do more to inherit bank accounts. BOG clarifies. You know, when they came up with this, a lot of people got excited. Oh, so that means if my name is the next of kin, that means I automatically go out there and take whatever the person owns.
It cannot
or
be
all
so.
the money the person left, just because I'm in next of kin.
It cannot be so. It cannot be so. And I mean, I'm sure eventually we'll get to know more about the details. But really, when you're the next of kin, there's a lot of proof that has to
they actually said here, according to the central bank, to inherit or have access to the account of a deceased customer, one will have to be named in the deceased customer's will as a beneficiary of the account, while a court or competent jurisdiction will have to grant letter of probate to empower the person who has been named in the will as a beneficiary to obtain the access to the deceased customer's
Precisely.
account.
So those of you who have your names on your uncles and your aunties bank accounts as next of kin, start becoming their friends. So go and visit them, go and cook for them, do whatever you have to do. So we have the daily guide here. Let's create a secure continent. Again, that story, of course, when the president speaks, it's news everywhere. Minister tames Ablakwa's bully pulpit tactics. That's on page 3 of the Daily Guide. And yesterday, there was a little tiff between the Honorable Ablakwa and the Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, back and forth there. But again, that's democracy, right? Then we have here as well, again, same story, payroll monitoring saves Ghana 345 million Ghana cedis. And then Jomoro cocoa farmers praise Cocoa Board. And that's on page 9 of the Daily Guide, speaking of cocoa.
Right. So, like, what I actually find, one of the topics that actually, hits me, it's about, creating a secure continent, I think it's important. A lot of people do not understand how serious terrorism is and how one country's terrorism issue can actually have a ripple effect. Because let me use Nigeria as example. Nobody ever thought that Boko Haram would be such an issue right now. And we are not just dealing with Boko Haram again in Nigeria. Now we have the kidnappers. They're all terrorist clubs. Do you understand? And these people are bold on TikTok, asking for money.
Saying all sorts of things.
Saying all sorts of things.
They have hostages and they're asking for ransoms
on TikTok.
On
TikTok. And, with all this, when you look at the history of Boko Haram, we never thought it would be what it is right now in Nigeria, because obviously it started from issues of religion from Niger. That's another country. And now it has trickled down to Nigeria. And then there's still issues of the same sect, but they don't call themselves Boko Haram in countries like Burkina Faso and other countries. So Yes, what Nana is actually saying is correct. I think all our security agencies in Africa, well, let's start with West Africa, should be working together.
Absolutely.
Should be seriously
Absolutely.
working together.
And you know, Chris, so thank you for pointing that out, because a lot of people feel that when something is happening in another country, it
It's
can
their
never
problem.
get to us. Exactly, it's their problem. We haven't even finished sorting out what we'll
Our
eat
problem,
this
and then
morning
we
and
are-
how
we
we'll pay
are
our rent.
worried.
So why should we worry about this? But our borders, by virtue of the way we even live, you know, we've been talking a lot more lately about securing borders and all
Yes.
that as well. But our borders are porous.
Very.
So it's not difficult. I mean, have you not heard of people who are trafficking all sorts of things, from drugs to illegal foodstuffs, all sorts of things through our borders? What makes it difficult for a human being who has a certain mindset that can affect us all negatively to also pass through? It's possible. So we do need to take it seriously. And when our security is threatened, our liberty, our freedom, our justice that we sit here and we proclaim happily as we're living in Ghana, freedom and justice, you know, it is also at stake. And again, like we said earlier, not just for us, but for all the people who are connected to us through trade, through immigration, all these different angles are also affected. So we do need to take it seriously.
And another angle that we don't really talk about, because it doesn't really come out in the news, is parents, guardians, friends, brothers, sisters. Please pay attention to what the younger ones are doing. Please pay attention to what the next person around you is doing, especially with the influx of different social media apps. This is where they are, this is the avenue that they're using to recruit.
Yeah, social media, big
This
one.
is the avenue that they're using
Big
to
one.
recruit.
Big one.
And one of the examples I'm going to give, do you remember one of the incidents of the Mutalab guy some years ago, the one that wanted to blow the Delta sometime in December? If I told you I wrote my SATs with that guy, would you believe it?
Wow.
I was on the same
Wow.
sit with him.
Wow.
He was in the British school, I was in the American school. So we wrote our SATs together. I know that boy.
Wow.
I know that boy. So when I saw him on CNN, BBC, I'm like, what?
Literally the boy next door.
Exactly. And then he was such a quiet person. How did it happen? It was when he went to uni in England that they, you know, kind of like got contact of him via social media, religion, and, you know, it entered his head. And that's how he became a terrorist. And he's still in prison.
We need to, no, but yes, pay attention to our, you know, as we're saying, Angela Miefite, it means the world is spoiled, although it's not the same anymore. So we really need to pay attention to it. There are a lot of young people who are on social media. I don't even think their parents know they are there, you know, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe the cybersecurity unit, we need players who are stakeholders to come together and maybe start talking to, because a lot of parents who don't even know how to operate a phone. Let's not forget.
Exactly.
It's a digital age, but there are many parents who may not have been to school, who don't know how to operate the technology, but their children, maybe not even on a phone that their parents bought for them, but through a friend's phone or somebody's phone, you know. So you're right, Chris, we need to be paying more attention to these things. The Chronicle is here. Don't use your committee as a bully pulpit. So again, that
what happened yesterday?
That little, you know, back and forth between Okujeta Blakwa and Kojopo Nkrumah. Otumfor distools 3 Sabronum chiefs over Galam. And you know, that's a great one to hear. Cites the Chronicle and NIB reports as evidence. Now, if this is what has happened, then we want to see more of this. Over and over again, we've been talking about Galamsey, how it's affecting our water supply, how it's affecting our water bodies, how it's affecting the quality of life of people in different communities. And a lot of the Galamsey pits are actually on cocoa farms. Again, speaking about cocoa, you know, was it last year or so, I had a conversation with some women cocoa farmers. And they said, look, a lot of them, to be honest, their children are going to Galamsey.
Wow.
Yes, and it's because they've seen the lives of their mothers and their grandmothers, their uncles, their fathers on the cocoa farms year after year. And yeah, now they've been, you know, some of them have gone to school. They've been good children. They've been obedient. They go to church. They do everything right, and still they are suffering. So for them, Galamsey seems like a nice way out.
Wow.
So, I mean, and we've talked over and over again about how there have been undertones that there are traditional rulers, community leaders who are involved in it. So if, you know, a chief as powerful as Otumfuo is identifying some of these people and, you know, stripping them of their titles, then we want to see more of that.
True, true.
All right. Simmering tensions after Tredston Empire Limited wins land case. And I mean, lots of different land cases. Then we have here, residents of Konongo are saying Galamsey is not illegal in Konongo.
On the other hand.
On the other hand, that's what they're saying. And I think that, you know, if this is what residents of a place are saying, then we need to step in, because we do know that our laws exist when it comes to illegal small-scale mining. And now Galamsey is no longer small-scale. This is big-time business.
It's a big business.
With the big machinery, with the big network of people who are involved in the value chain, the money that's going around. It's big business. So we need to, look, we've said this over and over again, Galamsey, crack down on it.
But do you think, since the residents are saying this, do you think it's an issue of education? I mean, last time we talked about if Galamsey continues, that there's going to be an issue of children being born with cleft lips.
Absolutely.
So do you think it's people are just not aware, or they are just deaf
Chris,
to it?
I'm sure if we spoke to these same Konongo residents and you ask them, is murder illegal? They'll say yes.
They'll say yes.
Is stealing illegal? They'll say yes.
Big yes to it.
There are so many things that they will say. Is raping someone illegal? They'll say yes. Why is it that they think that Galamsey is normal, let alone legal? It's because we haven't done what we have to do as a nation to treat this thing like the canker that it is. We need to be cracking down on it the way we crack on any illegal practice. And we haven't done that. It's like today we're upset about it, tomorrow,
and then tomorrow we forget about it again.
Let's go to sleep tomorrow. Oh, today we are tired. We can't be tired. We cannot be tired. So if the people are not seeing the action being taken against people who are doing something that we claim is illegal, is bad, is affecting us negatively, then of course, this is what they'll say.
True. All right, so on the front page of the Anchor, we have, coming up, immigration officials in massive extortion at airport. Hundreds of patrons, exhibitors gear up for This is Ghana 2024 exhibition. Clement Apak lists major reforms of next NDC government on education. Asantehene strikes again, distools 3 chiefs over Galamsey. Bawumia to invest heavily in solar energy, initiative to reduce cost of electricity by 50%.
Oh, I love the solar energy bit. I love it. Long overdue. The sun is shining. Look, how is it that at some point this year, between January and April, May there, we're walking around and we're all crying about how hot it is. What were we doing with the sun? Meanwhile, somebody's power will be out in their office, in their home. What are we doing with the sun? All over the world now, people are moving towards, first of all, there's a conversation about renewable energy. Right? So solar, wind energy, all these things. But there's also generally just using what you have. Yes, we've been relying as a national grid on hydroelectric power for a long time, you know. But it's clear that on the time that that system was set up, many, many, many more Ghanaians have been born.
Sure.
Many more people are living and breathing, you know. And then also, let's not forget that we have challenges in mapping out who is where. There are many residential areas in Ghana that have now become, over time, business spaces, and vice versa. It happens. It's not just a Ghana thing. It happens all over the world. So if solar is something that you have the right panels, the initial investment can be pricey. Yeah, it can be actually very pricey. Yes, but after you've done that, it's something that we can all benefit from. Now, I have solar in my house. Yes, you told me that. Yes, we do. And look, it's a game changer. I tell you, again, yes, initial investment, very pricey. But if individuals are now tapping into solar power, biogas power, You know, there are a few companies I know that are doing the wind, you know, power and all that.
I was thinking about the wind, you know, kind of energy. Like, I know all this started with windmills a long time ago. Do you think it can work here?
I think it can. There are portions of the country that are very windy.
Right.
There are.
Right.
The parts of the country that are a bit higher up, you know, on hills, on mountains and whatnot, it can. But again, we have the researchers. We have people who are documenting and looking into some of these things. We need to be working together. There's too much of a disconnect between academia, you know, our scientists, our innovators, government policy, and then us who are common floor members living with too much of a disconnect. You know, we need to be working together. But I'm happy that, you know, we're speaking about solar. I hope that it goes beyond speech and actually becomes action.
True, true, true. And I think the more people start to use it, the prices will, you know, become, you know, a bit down for
of course.
A lot to
I mean, that's how economics works, right? The more you patronize something over time, I mean, basically speaking, ceteris paribus, you know, other things being equal, the more you utilize something, a service, a good, there's a higher demand for it. Over time, economies of scale can allow the affordability of it to become more palatable for a user.
All right, on the front page of the New Finder, we've achieved significant milestones in job creation. Next of kin cannot, we read about the next of kin. And lastly, we have here irrigation over inputs for food security.
Well,
this issue of irrigation.
Well, as for irrigation, it's also something we've spoken about, just like how you know, a little earlier we spoke about the drought resistance and whatnot. Irrigation is also something that we've been talking about for a very long time. There are many farmers across the country who, in their own way, have started fidgeting with, you know, Ghanaians, and Africans, we are the kings and queens of appropriate technology. Take something, wasn't necessarily made for that purpose, and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
There are a number of farmers who, I mean, when you travel across the country, you see them sort of playing around with different systems, especially those who live close to water bodies, you know, and take recycled pipes, plastics, try to redirect flow to certain parts of the farm. You see that. But irrigation is something we've been talking about for a very long time. And now more than ever, it is critical. It is critical because climate change has taught us that our weather patterns, we cannot sit down and say, hey, next month we're going to have 5 weeks of rain, because that is what we have known.
I'm still waiting for the sun.
No.
It's not, it's like this. I've been waiting for the sun.
It's changed. And globally, these conversations have been happening. Now, I think that when it comes to things like climate change, because we are dealing with serious bread and butter issues.
Serious, yeah.
Sometimes we tend to think, oh, let's not. But you see, those things come back to bite us later on. I always tell, when I speak to my young people, youth groups and all that, we're trying to talk about the effects of these things. I say, look at kinky. The reason why your kinky, one of the reasons why your kinky is getting more and more expensive, but the size is becoming smaller and smaller, is because in different parts, we are not realizing it. Maize farmers are suffering. And they are suffering because the weather patterns that they could predict so easily and effortlessly before is not so. And we're seeing it with the drought.
Exactly.
The drought is a typical example. You know, so irrigation on the flip side, very important. We need to be having those you know, conversations. Otherwise, our food security will be in jeopardy.
Right.
It will be. Even when you have a plant at home, even the one that is most drought resistant, don't you water it?
True.
You do. So how much more, you know, a vast farmland that is supposed to produce, and don't forget we have cycles of harvest. You expect to make a harvest over a certain time. That's why we say, oh, mango is in season. Oh, tomato is in season. Oh, this is in season. But if we don't step into sort of buttress what we are doing with some of these solutions, irrigation solutions and whatnot, then you will not have any seasonal. When the thing comes, it will come. And that's when we eat it.
And that's when we eat
How is it that now 1 finger of plantain is 10 Ghana cedis?
Please.
one finger of plantain, right? 10 Ghana cedis.
Yeah.
So just because you want to eat kelewele and gobe, you're going to spend 10 cedis on just that one plantain. So we need to be having more of these conversations and then move beyond the talk.
Right.
And actually work. And again, I say we have the people who are doing the research. Some of it has even been done, tested. You know, the aquaponics, all these things. There are people who are doing it. Come to This Is Ghana, you see some of them. You know, but let's go back and actually now put action to the talk.
Right.
That is the important thing. Otherwise, we'll be here 10 years and the same conversations we're having about irrigation and everything else, we'll still be having them.
Right, right. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Africa.
for
It was
having
nice
me, Chris.
having you, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we have on the front pages of the papers. And a very big thank you to Apioka, who's the head of programs production right here at Channel One TV and City FM. It's time for us to get into sports, so just sit back, relax, and we'll be back with sports. All right, welcome. It's time for us to get into sports, and we are going to be starting with the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup. Black Princesses head coach Yusuf Basigi has named Stella Nyamiche as the team's captain ahead of the start of the Women's Under-20 World Cup in Colombia. The decision was announced via the Ghana FA's website yesterday. Nyamiche will be supported by her teammates goalkeeper Afi Aminyaku and Mefia Nyame of AS FAR of Morocco. Nyamiche said getting the armband to lead the team in the World Cup was an honor. Ghana will face Austria, Japan, and New Zealand in the group stages of the tournament.
Right, Chris, still on some sports stories. The Europe tops clubs will discover their first round opponents in the new look UEFA Champions League when the draw is done later today. The new format will see 36 teams in a league, and each team will play 8 matches in that phase. At the end of the process, the top 8 will automatically go into the round of 16, while teams ranked 9th to 24th will take part in playoffs to determine the other 8 places in the round of 16. From that point, the competition will take on its regular 2-legged knockout format until the final in 2025. The same format will be used for the Europa League, where teams in Manchester United, Roma and FC Porto will be competing. UEFA says the new formats for the competitions will ensure a balance amongst teams since they will now compete with others of similar levels of strength and quality. The new Champions League season will end on May 31st in Munich, Germany, while the new Europa League campaign will end on May 22nd, 2025 in Bilbao, Spain.